Hello, Three Mikes Nation. What is going on? We had a big week this past weekend in college football. We saw a lot of movement in the top 25. Let's start off. Let's talk about the biggest game of the week. We're going to go with that Clemson-Notre Dame game. Aiden, I know this was your team in that game. Unfortunately, they couldn't walk away with the victory. What did you see there?
Yeah, you know what? Definitely a heartbreaker for my Irish. It's really a tough one to sort of get your head around. At the end of the day, I look at these two teams, and I think they're pretty evenly matched. I think these are two of the better teams in the country. Notre Dame, DeShone Kizer, really the first true road test for him, I would say. First start on the road against a Clemson defense that I would consider to be one of the best defenses in the country. I was, satisfied with his performance, wasn't blown away. I honestly think these two teams very evenly matched. Would I say the heavy rain played a role in the outcome? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But at the end of the day, I picked Notre Dame to make it to the college football playoff. I'm sticking with that prediction. I think they win out the rest of the year. It's sort of a pivotal point in the season. We saw them have a similar sort of result last year when they went down to Tallahassee and lost a heartbreaker to Florida State. And after that game last year, their whole season sort of fell apart. I think they lost 4 more in a row, losing to Louisville, Northwestern, Arizona State. I think this is really a pivotal point. Are they going to turn it around and keep winning, or are they going to sort of fall apart like they did down the stretch last year?
Yeah, and the biggest difference in this game was the way Clemson was able to start out of the gates, and really they started fast, putting up 14 points in the first quarter to Notre Dame's 3. And while Notre Dame was playing behind the whole game, they showed some fight in the fourth quarter, and they had that chance to tie it up on the 2-point convert. But I think there were a lot of positives in this game for Notre Dame, and as well as Clemson. Obviously, I think DeShone Kizer, you look at him, he had a good performance on the road. 321 yards, a couple touchdowns. He also had a few big rushing plays that really kept the Irish offense going. But I think it was just the start we saw from Clemson. They were able to play from ahead, and Dabo Swinney got the win.
Aiden, I'm wondering if you thought the weather played a major factor in the outcome of this game.
Yeah, I think Clemson's definitely got the stronger rushing attack of the two teams. Like Patrick said, I think a big part of the game was who was able to move the ball better on the ground. And ultimately, I think Clemson sort of won that battle. Like you said, I love what DeShone Kizer was able to do with his feet. A couple of big runs. I think the weather's always going to be a part of it. It's a tough one. Definitely a tough one.
Yeah, we saw the weather led to a lot of dropped passes from both teams, but it was it affected Notre Dame more than it affected Clemson because Notre Dame was trying to throw the ball they threw the ball 34 times to Clemson's just 22 times. So the weather did have a negative impact on Notre Dame, I think.
This weekend we almost saw the top 2 teams in the nation go down. We saw Ohio State narrowly escape Indiana 34-27. And Michigan State even closer, 24-21. What do you guys think this says about the strength of college football as a whole?
Well, it shows we're getting a lot more what's the word?
Parity?
Yeah, parity. We're seeing a lot of parity in college football. They're not seeing the same teams at the top. Well, we're kind of seeing the same teams. Bama's always going to be at the top, and there are a few other teams up there. But there's a lot less of a gap between the top and the bottom this year. That goes for all conferences across the country, and it's going to make for a really exciting end to the year, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I see a lot of people freaking out about this Ohio State-Indiana game, and I think part of it is that Ohio State didn't play too well. I don't think anyone was pleased with the play of Cardale Jones in that one. A lot of Buckeye fans, screaming for just that they want to see more of JT Barrett. I also think you got to remember that this is a pretty strong Indiana team that's 4-0 going into this one. Obviously not the same traditional powerhouse, but a strong team in the Big Ten, and certainly a worthy opponent for Ohio State, I think.
Yeah, something I'm looking at here, Ezekiel Elliott rushed for 274 yards that game, and they only beat this Indiana team by a score. That's beast mode. Not to sound too much like Marshawn, not to take too much away from Marshawn Lynch there, but Ezekiel Elliott, he's going off in the game, and they're only winning by a score. That's gotta bring some fear to some Ohio State fans out there.
Go back to JT Barrett, Urban Meyer. That's my suggestion. I think JT Barrett's the better quarterback. He was last year, and he is this year. Cardale Jones continues to be carried by Ezekiel Elliott and a great offensive line. JT Barrett's a better leader, and he makes better decisions with the football, and he's got the speed as well on the edge. Adds a little bit of a different aspect to Ohio State's game. I think he should be a starter.
Yeah, I got to agree with Patrick. When I look at this Ohio State offense, so many different weapons. What I really think they need at quarterback is someone who can distribute the ball rather than someone who sort of tries to take over like Cardale Jones does. I think JT Barrett's the guy.
All right, let's move to that Michigan State game against Purdue this weekend. That game was in East Lansing. Connor Cook only completed 13 passes for 139 yards. This is a guy that a lot of people talked about as a Heisman candidate. What do you think this game says about his chances moving forward?
I wouldn't say it kills his Heisman chances, but it doesn't help. Just 13 completions, about 140 yards, 1 touchdown. Good news is didn't turn the ball over at all. I believe this game was a little bit rainy. Not 100% sure. I wouldn't say I loved his play, but definitely still a Heisman contender in my mind.
I've never been too high on Connor Cook either before the season or during the season, but he is a good quarterback. I don't think he's that impressive. I don't think he's in the top 10 for the Heisman right now. He could work his way into there with some good performances down the road. We'll see. Michigan State's going to have some huge games coming up. But, yeah, Michigan State's offense was led by a great rushing attack from L.J. Scott, and Michigan State, a close game that probably should have been a bit wider, but Michigan State, I think, is one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, let's move over to the SEC now. We had Ole Miss coming off of a win against Bama. They headed to the Swamp this weekend to take on the Gators, and they came out of there with a 38-10 loss to this Florida team, at the time ranked 25th in the country. Aiden, what does this game tell you about the SEC this year?
Anyone can win any given game in the SEC. I think that's really the message that you get out of this. 2 weeks ago, we saw Ole Miss take down Alabama. This week, we see Alabama blow out Georgia. Ole Miss sort of get a spanking from Florida. I really think I'm starting to fall in love with this Florida team. 5-0. Not really sure why they're 25th. I think they should be ranked higher than that. But 5-0, 2 quality wins in a row now with Tennessee and Ole Miss. I really like this Florida team. This is a team I could see. If they're not playing in the SEC, they've got enough quality wins to make the playoff, but certainly got a tough schedule ahead of them.
And you know who I don't like? Will Muschamp. That guy, he's not doing much good things for Auburn this year as their defensive coordinator, and he really ran that Florida program into the ground. And now with their new coach, Jim McElwain, they're starting to look like a really good football team only in his first year. And they're arguably the favorites for the SEC at this point. I don't think they're the favorites, but they're in that top 2 or 3 teams of the SEC and could be national title contenders down the road.
Yeah, definitely a team that I'm calling now to make it to the SEC championship game. Going to be a fun team to watch all year long.
All right, well, let's stick in the SEC then. We had Alabama headed to Georgia, came out with that 38-10 victory over the Bulldogs. Patrick, I know that was a game that you were definitely looking at this weekend. What did you think of that?
Well, we saw Don't Doubt Nick Saban. It was the first game in a few years, I think, that Alabama was underdogs, and they came out there and stomped Georgia on the road. Great performance from Lane Kiffin's offense and Nick Saban's defense. Derrick Henry, 148 rushing yards, which has come to be the norm for him. Don't doubt Bama. They may lose one game, but they're not going to lose another one. Bama's still the same old Bama.
Yeah, this is just a classic Alabama win here, running the ball really efficiently. We saw Jake Coker not put up incredible numbers, but do enough for that team to win the game. Their offensive numbers weren't unbelievable, but they did enough, and they moved the ball and helped that defense of theirs. And we know once Alabama starts moving the ball on the ground, their defense starts flying around. Definitely a tough team to beat.
I think what we've seen over the last couple of years from this Bama team is they love playing that underdog role. They just absolutely feed under that, kind of let us show you kind of mentality. And I think that's ultimately what led to the victory this weekend. So I want to talk about, touch on the Big 12. We've got 2 teams there in the top 5. Baylor and TCU both came away with victories this weekend. TCU absolutely slapped Texas 50-7 at home. Patrick, this TCU team with that high-powering offense. What are you looking for? What are you looking for from them for the rest of the year?
Well, I'm looking for them to score a lot of points and continue winning. I think Big 12 is not a conference that will be able to get multiple teams into the college football playoffs, so every game is going to be huge for these TCU and Baylor teams. Likely the winner of that game could be a college football playoff contender. See, I don't think this one's super impressive. Texas is not a very good football team. We've seen it multiple times this year. But, yeah, TCU, they got the job done.
Yeah, I really don't care at all about the 50 points that this TCU offense put up. The only number that I care about.
What's up, kids?
Uh,
Dream Mike Sports Day.
Mid-show.
Mitch, am I interrupting anything?
it's fine.
Oh, I was. You weren't recording, were you?
It'll be fine.
We don't have listeners.
Yeah, me.
What's it called? Where was I?
All right, just a brief interruption, but we're back now. Yeah, just
Like I was saying, really impressed by this play of the TCU defense. We saw them struggle last week at Texas Tech. This week, able to handle a Texas offense, which I'll admit isn't a really strong one. And I think their offense is the least of their worries in Austin right now with all that's going on with Coach Charlie Strong.
yeah, it's a complete mess with that Texas program. Something serious is going to happen to those boys. That Baylor Texas Tech game, they played that at Cowboys Stadium this past weekend, 63-35. You know, it's a win for these Bears, but that defense still needs to sharpen up, in my opinion, especially when they play TCU. This game, it goes in Fort Worth at the end of the season. It's going to be a shootout.
There's no doubt about it. It is going to be an absolute shootout. I think everyone's got that one marked on their calendar.
I would not be surprised with 150 points scored in that game.
Yeah, I think one team will score 70 points.
I
Not sure which
wouldn't be
one.
surprised if both teams were in the 70s.
70 to 60, something like that.
You know, it's going to be one of those games. I don't know why we're already talking about this, but it's well down the road. Last year, this matchup between the two teams was the best game of the year, without a doubt. I think this year we're going to see that again. Both offenses are even better, and both defenses are even worse. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
That seems to be the theme in the Big 12 this year. You know, we've got some great offensive performers, but defense is really struggling. Kind of matches the high school football mentality in Texas, where the most skilled players end up playing on the offensive side of the ball, and we end up with, you know, lopsided numbers like this. One thing that really did impress me, though, Shockland Wood's performance. You know, every week this guy's doing something crazy. 20 rushing attempts, 221 yards. Like, are you serious, man? 11 yards per carry. Seth Russell, another solid game. 3 for 4 touchdowns, 286 yards. Jarrett Stidham, you know, the true freshman, got 1 snap, 26-yard completion. Not too much to complain about there. Patrick, looking ahead, I know that USC's got a big conference matchup this week against Washington. That goes Thursday night. What should we look for there?
Well, we're going to see Steve Sarkisian face off against his former school for the first time ever. Coached at Washington for, I believe, 4 years, I think. So we're going to see how he handles that. I think it should do well. Washington's a team that's won a few games. They're always a decent team, but they're never really a great team. I think USC, they could be focusing down the road. They got Notre Dame next week, but for now they got to focus on this Washington team, try and get the job done. Ideally, they'd like to win by a couple scores and just get the job done.
Yeah, you know what? I would consider this to be a bit of a trap game for USC. You know, coming off a bye week, maybe looking ahead to this Notre Dame game, which a lot of people think is going to be a great game. And I think they really need to respect this Washington team. Good offense, solid defensive team. I think this could be a surprisingly close game between these two teams.
I think it's time that we return to our, we try to start this tradition. Helmet stickers. Aiden, you want to go ahead and give out yours?
No, I'm going to keep my helmet sticker and give it to my – I don't know why I say keep it. I'm going to give it to my boy Seth Russell, QB at Baylor. You know, he just slung the ball around this week, 4 touchdowns for him. Phenomenal player, certainly a Heisman front runner in my mind. Going to be a lot of fun to watch this Baylor offense throughout the year.
I'm gonna give mine to Florida quarterback Will Grier. Love that kid. Florida improves to 5-0 with the big win over Ole Miss. He completed 24 of 29, 271 yards, 4 touchdowns, did not throw an interception. Great game from Will Grier.
Yeah, really efficient performance, might I add.
I'm going to go with Mason Rudolph, another quarterback in the Big 12 out of Ohio State.
Oklahoma State.
That's what I was meaning to say. Oklahoma State, OSU, the real one. He had a big performance this week as OSU came out with a 36-34 victory over Kansas State. Always good to get those conference wins under the belt. He threw for 437 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just a great performance from him to help lift that Cowboys team to a W. So that moves us into quick picks now this week. Let's start with our first game here. Northwestern is visiting Michigan. Aiden, who you got there?
This is a very interesting game to watch. 2 teams that I would say have a lot of momentum going into this one. Michigan's a team that a lot of people like, but you know what? I'm going with the Wildcats. Northwestern.
I'm actually going to agree with you. I'm going to take Northwestern on the road. A lot of people thought their opening week win over Stanford was just a fluke, and it's because Stanford might have another bad year. But Stanford's come on and played well, and so is Northwestern. It's going to be a really good game, though. It's going to come down to the last minute. I think Northwestern will come out on top.
Yeah, if you're saying it's coming down to the last minute, I'm taking the home team, especially in the Big House. Go blue here. I'm taking the Wolverines. That brings us to our next quick game this year. We have Cal visiting the Utes in Utah. Pat, who you got there?
I'm going to take Utah at home. They've been too much. Cal, I think, is a little bit overranked, getting into the top 25. They haven't really impressed me. This is the college game day game this week, and we're going to see those guys there. But I think Utah will get a big home win.
Yeah, I agree with Patrick. Just looking at Cal's schedule, haven't really seen an impressive win yet. Utah's a team pretty much impossible to beat at home in my mind. I got the Utes.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with both you guys here. I'm taking Utah. As boring as it is, they're just the better team here. All right, finally, we're going to go with the Big 12 matchup. We've got Oklahoma State visiting West Virginia in Morgantown. Patrick, who you got in that game?
I'm going to take Oklahoma State on the road. That's who I'm going to go with. As you said, your helmet sticker guy, Mason Rudolph. I think he's going to get the job done against West Virginia on the road. It's going to be a loud game in Morgantown. It's going to be exciting. Yeah, Cowboys.
Yeah, I like the Mountaineers in this one. I think they're coming off a bye week. I like that extra week of preparation, I think. And you know what? I love the home field advantage. It's a night game. It's a tough place to go and get a win.
Yeah, Morgantown on a Saturday night. No better ticket in town. I'm going to take the Mountaineers in this one, especially after Oklahoma State just came off that close victory to Kansas State. You know, aside from Mason Rudolph, the team didn't look all that tight. So I'm going to go with the Mountaineers in this one. Well, 3 Mics Nation, that's all we have in store for you today. Thank you for listening. Sorry about that brief interruption, but until next time, stay up, 3 Mics Nation.
Peace.